Hello and welcome to my video where I am going to demonstrate how I created this painting. As you can see, I sketched the painting onto the canvas prior to getting started. Now on this particular painting, instead of doing an acrylic underpainting, I decided to just go ahead and start with oil from the very beginning. So what you see here is me applying the oil paint, and I started with the background. I'm just kind of going around the figure with the blues and the purples that I wanted to use. Just kind of sketching it in, giving myself a solid background. I kind of like, having a background there before I start painting the face. But, sometimes I might paint the face first. So it's just a matter of what kind of mood I'm in. So I'm applying the paint, not super heavy. I'm painting it on to where it's covering the canvas well enough, and then as I come back and add other layers to it, it's going to kind of thicken up. So kind of a light coat at first, and then building the layers as I go. So I'm not really showing my palette here, but I do have my standard colors that I typically put on all of my canvases, and I can go ahead and list those out, and I can also, I'll put them in the description below. So I'm using titanium white, cadmium red, permanent alizarin crimson, cadmium orange, cadmium yellow, cadmium yellow lemon, French ultramarine, cobalt blue, Dioxazine Violet, and Ivory black. And then, I ended up adding an orange, cadmium orange, and I think I used a little bit of a pink. I can't really remember. So now I'm shading in around her face. I'm starting to shade in her dark hair. I think my goal at this time was to really fill the whole canvas up. Get the whole canvas covered, and then once the whole canvas is covered, the idea is to start putting on a second layer and putting nuances in. So right now I'm sticking to the darker tones, as you can see, going ahead and painting in the darker tones that are showing up in the painting. And one of the things about creating a painting like this is the ability to let it not look good. In other words, if you look at it right now, it's not pleasing to the eye. And this is an important part of being able to stick with it. it's not going to, it's not necessarily going to look great from the very beginning. There's going to be stages in here where we're applying the paint. See, I'm marking out. That's where her necklace is. Just kind of marking that out so I can visually work with it. And then, here we go. We're adding some color. This orange is such an important part of this piece. And, I mean, as you can see, I'm painting, and maybe getting a little bored and decide, let me put in some orange. Now, you'll see me spending a lot of time right up at the top. I started out having her, she had a bow in her hair. And I'll tell more about that later. So, putting the eyes in, sometimes I really like to add the eyes. Sometimes that might be one of the first things I do. Have a little bit of the foundation as far as the shape of her face, and then go ahead and start blocking in the eyes, because to me the eyes start giving my portrait a personality, and I start feeling as if I'm able to relate to the subject of my painting. She's a person. Now, this particular painting is not done from a model. This is from my imagination, and I did use some help with an AI application. So she's a fictitious character, has been made up, but there was something about her that really spoke to me, and I just decided I want to paint this. And that's something important too. If we're gonna paint something, and as you can see, I mean, this painting, I spent a total of about 4 hours on this painting. So this video is less than an hour. So I have sped it up, and towards the end of the painting, I spent about 30 minutes at the end, and I did not record it, but I will show you and explain everything I did in those last 30 minutes. So being able to relate to the subject matter is pretty important, because it takes a lot of patience to spend 4 hours on a painting. Now, I did not spend 4 hours in one day on this painting. I worked on this painting, I probably worked on it about 5 times. Maybe 6 to 8 times max, and I would work about an hour, each time, maybe 35 minutes here or there. So right now I am really, really getting a feel for the gold tones. The gold tones are an important part of this piece as well. There was something about the way that the colors came together that really, really spoke to me. So if as you notice, when I start a new color, I go ahead and try to paint that color all over the canvas, everywhere on the canvas that color is going to be, I'm putting it there. You see that? And the benefit of doing that is it keeps your painting balanced. You've mixed your paint color, and now that it's mixed and you're happy with it, you can go ahead and apply that to the painting in every area where that color is going to be. And it's also, it's more pleasant to look at the painting too. See, so we want to balance this out. We want to balance it out. We want to be able to continue to paint and be dedicated and devoted to the painting, even though it doesn't really look right yet. And we also want to be gradually getting the painting to where it is starting to come alive for us. And for me, it's definitely the eyes, the face, the mouth. And I will say that the very last thing I worked on was the mouth. So what I'll do is I'll work on the painting for a while and then I'll put it away, but I'll leave it standing up, and I might have it in a prominent area in the room and I'll look at it. I might be, watching TV or listening to an audio book or doing some kind of activity around the house, and I'll glance at it. I'll glance at that painting, or I'll sit and I will look at that painting. And as I'm looking at it, I will be noticing things on it that I'm going to want to change. I'm going to want to fix it, make an adjustment on it. And so I find that really helps me. This first layer will be kind of dry before I come back and start another layer on top of that. And I'll make my changes that I had seen. So I probably did that, like I said earlier, about 4 different times during the process of this painting, where I would look at it for a while and kind of in my mind go over the changes that I was going to make eventually. I don't write them down. I don't really record them. I like to kind of stay intuitive about it. I kind of record them just visually in my mind, and then I trust that when I get back to it, it's going to naturally happen. I'm going to flow with it. So you see how I'm applying this other color. I'm making sure that I'm balancing it out. I'm adding it to the top right, and then I'm adding it to the bottom left corner. It's kind of a soft purple. It's actually a mix of orange and purple. You can see the orange on my brush. And orange and purple are kind of opposites on the color wheel a little bit, right? Because orange is red and yellow and purple is red and blue. So they really do well together, and I think that was one of the things I really liked about this. As I said before, was the use of these particular colors. So things are starting to come together. The whole canvas isn't full yet, but I'm working on that. Got the gold out again, applying it in different places. You can see how I'm kind of skipping around, and I don't really know. Okay, so this is the bow that I was going to put, and I ended up completely getting rid of the bow in that last 30 minutes. So you're not going to see me getting rid of it. You'll see me creating it and then as I sat with the painting between sessions, one day I was looking at it and I had the idea, I don't think I like that bow. I don't think I would. I liked it at first. I thought it was really cool, but I found myself telling a friend, I wouldn't wear that bow. And as soon as I said that, I thought, oh, I shouldn't make her wear that. And then another thing you can see is her hair, the length of her hair on our left. It's her right, our left. I eventually lengthened that all the way to her shoulder, which you'll see that as we move further into the painting. So yeah, now I'm back into her face, filling in. Oh, you see, I just jump around, just jump around. It almost seems like no rhyme or reason sometimes, but that's okay. You just really want to feel it. And I really enjoyed this painting. And I think part of that enjoyment was allowing myself to jump around, work on whatever I felt like working on. Now, these little yellow highlights were in her hair on our right, her left. In that last 30 minutes of editing, I completely took those out. But you can't tell in the beginning, at this phase of the painting, whether there's going to be something that you're working on that you're going to eventually just get rid of it. So it's better to just go with it. Get the whole canvas covered. Get it covered, and it's really, really difficult to make these final decisions that I did make in the last 30 minutes before you're ready. So there's no need to rush yourself or pressure yourself about some of those decisions, because when the time is right, you will address those. So I'm filling in around that bow. And I know a friend of mine said, well, if you take the bow off, then all this space right here is going to be kind of blank. So, it was a guy friend of mine, and he said, I can kind of see why the bow is there. It's filling up this space. And I was like, okay, yeah, he has a point. So I'm gonna stick with it for now, and we shall see. So yeah, just kind of filling in, and so I'm almost at this point. The entire canvas is just about covered. And it's interesting that I saved her mouth for last when covering the canvas. Her ear. Now, ears and mouths they are tricky. And it can be easy to just go ahead and decide, I'll wait till later. I have to be in the right mood to paint in an ear and a mouth, right? Because, oh gosh, they can be so challenging. But I will say that the position of her mouth and the colors of her mouth was one of the things that really, really attracted me to this. Okay, so we're putting in, you can see now I'm putting in the shape of her lips, her upper lip. And, this type of posture is a bit challenging. because her chin is up, and so I'm not painting a straight on posture. So there are some challenges to that to really make it look right. Her mouth is going to be kind of, we're kind of basically looking up at her mouth in a way. The camera is almost below her mouth, so that can create challenges. But it's okay because this is the phase of the painting where I'm just trying to get the canvas filled. And I just about have gotten it filled at this point, as you can see. And I'm not, as you can see, I'm not blending, I'm not blocking, I'm not trying to make it look perfect. I'm basically putting in colors, putting the colors in, placing colors on the canvas, knowing that I will come in and perfect them later. Okay? And one of the things I really liked about this was the shadows. Now, it's going to be later on in the video where you're going to see how I was able to really make that look like a shadow on her chest. So that purple line on her chest just looks like a big purple blob right now. That's fine. I'm laying down all the colors where they need to go, and then I'm going to come back and perfect them later. Soften them. If I can lighten them if they're too light, I can darken them if they're too dark. Basically just getting them in place, putting them where they need to be. See, now I'm working on that line. That's a shadow line, and it does not look like a shadow line yet. But you can see that I'm checking my scale. I'm checking to make sure that the shadows are in the right place. Kind of darkening the shadow a little bit right there. So now the canvas is completely covered, and I am coming in and doing corrections, taking care of things that I missed in my initial, laying down of the paint. And kind of working from dark to light, dark to light. And then see, here's some light highlights, that ribbon, that bow. So it happens, it happens where we spend some time putting in some items that ended up, those highlights in her hair, that I ended up getting rid of those in the last 30 minutes as well. That's fine. You don't know until you know. And I kind of liked the idea of those highlights in the top of her hair, because I thought, well, it looks like the light is hitting the top of her hair. But when it all came down to it at the end, I decided to take those out. Now, painting fabric, I love painting fabric. I was an interior designer in my career, and one of the things I used to do is I used to draw window treatments, custom window treatments for my clients. So you see how I got a little bit of that light paint on my brush, and now I'm moving around the canvas, placing that white paint, that lighter color everywhere where it needs to go. But yeah, I created custom window treatments for my clients. I didn't actually sew, but I designed them, and I had a seamstress. I had more than one seamstress that would sew the window treatments, but I sold so many window treatments from a sketch. I would bring in my samples, the fabric samples for the window treatments, and then I would sketch out the window treatment. And my client would go, "Oh my God, you just drew that?" And I would say, "Yeah, I just, we would be talking about what she wanted, and we'd have the fabric right there, and I would sketch it out." So I learned how to draw fabric, folds. Now, I did decide for this painting, I will say that because I used to design window treatments, and some of those designs were very detailed, I did get in the habit of doing very detailed window treatment sketches. So when I started on this particular painting, I decided that I was not going to spend a lot of time trying to perfect the folds and perfect even this bow. Even though I got rid of the bow later, while I was painting the bow, I was trying not to make it look perfect. I wanted this painting to feel like a painting. I wanted the observer to be able to see the brush strokes, all of the different brush strokes, so that you can tell it's a painting. So I did withhold my impulse to create perfect folds. And that might be why I'm kind of working around the folds so far at this point in the painting, because I'm very well aware that once I start on the folds, I'm going to want to really keep it loose. So, okay, I had taken a break, and now we're back to it. As you can see, I'm starting out with dark, and that's a traditional way to paint, is start with your dark tones first and work your way up to the light tones. So I'm really accenting the shadows on the left side of her face. It's to our right, and I'm darkening up her eyes. So obviously I had been kind of looking at the painting, and then when I came back this time around, I had some specific things that I knew I wanted to work on, and that was the shadows in her eyes. You can see I went right for that. Now, her right eye to our left has a really dark shadow going from the edge of the eye all the way to her hair. I eventually got rid of that in the last 30 minutes. So I'll show you that when we get to the end. And I like it without that. But I was sticking true to the creation that I had made with along with AI, and just kind of really following it so that I had a good representation of the original creation and the original design. And if I made any changes, it would be, from that design after I had that design on the canvas. So I'm trying to remain very true to the design right now, remaining true to the colors and the shapes and, the highlights as well. And you see as I'm putting in the darker tones how her face starts really, really popping out. Just doing some more on the lips here. Dark, dark shadow on the right side of her face and her cheekbone. Okay. And as I said, noses, the faces are tricky. I mean, faces, they take a lot of patience. But I feel like at this stage of the game, the face was already kind of speaking to me. I was already feeling as if I was kind of relating to my subject. Okay, so here is another, after a break, I came back in and started darkening up the background, sharpening a darker background up around the painting and the bow that's eventually going to go away. I mean, you can see it. I mean, it's not that bad, right? It's kind of cute, but now these are kind of interesting. It's almost like ribbons that are like, I don't really know what they are, but I like them. And so I'm now giving more definition to the background, defining it, kind of setting it in place. Putting some color there so that ribbon stands out. So you can see how great that looks as I came in and put the darker blue in, and then now I'm putting the lighter purple. That really helps the background stand out. Just defining the edge of that ribbon there. Now I'm putting some highlights. Boy, look at the difference that made. Just that little dab on her eye made such a difference. I did struggle a fair amount with that cheekbone. And I did end up really softening that in the last 30 minutes. There were a lot of elements of the painting that I did not touch in the last 30 minutes. Basically, it was the ribbon, her lips, and that cheekbone And oh, I made a change to her right, the right side of her body. I'll tell more about that as we get to that, because right now it's just completely abstract. I haven't even given it any attention yet. This bottom, to our bottom left, as we're looking at it, is completely still very, very abstract. That's going to be more defined. So you can see how the shadows on her face are purple and red. You know, shadows are oftentimes blue and purple. And I really love, again, I really love all the colors in this, how you can actually paint a portrait with purple, gold, orange, blue, red, and make it look so dynamic and interesting. So this is a little highlight that's showing up on her face right there. And then she's got some highlights on her neck. So here you see me taking a lot of light. I'm taking light paint and I'm adding it to areas on the canvas. And keep in mind that when you're painting, that the darker colors tend to recede to the back, the lighter colors tend to pop out towards you. So you can see as I'm adding dark right there, how that makes her face kind of pop out a little bit. And look how that's going to make her shoulder pop out. I'm leaving the color in the hair, though, not completely, you know, coloring it in. It has taken me a while, I'll say years, taken me years to learn how to hold back from trying to get it perfect and just allow it to be, you know, imperfect. That's a hard thing to do. All right, so here's another session. I have let it relax, and again, you see how I'm going straight for the dark color. On every session, I kind of tend to go with the dark colors first and work into the light colors. So I'm just sketching in her necklace, just kind of roughly. It's by no means is this a definite, but putting it in place, getting the shadows in place so that I can have a feel for them in the overall. And that, look how much that did, just doing that little bit. It shows her pendant. It shows a position of her pendant in the painting. To me, it's going to be an important part. And you know, I did not do the details of that pendant until the last 30 minutes of my work on the painting. Because, to be honest, the details of the pendant did not take, obviously, they didn't take that long because I did it, you know, pretty quickly. So, now this is surprising me how dark that is. I think what I'm doing here is I'm changing the tone of her flesh tone right here. And if I remember correctly, I ended up having to lighten it up a little bit, but that's okay because I think that I was noticing that her chest area, it was a little too pink, which was fine, a little too pink. And I wanted to bring in some of, it's kind of a mixture. It's like yellow ochre and purple. So really it's yellow ochre, red, and blue. And a very great mix for skin tones is alizarin crimson and yellow ochre, and then, white, one of the whites. So just kind of working on her neck. And I had it was almost like 3 highlights on her neck. And those 3 did stay there throughout most of the process. And then at the very end, I got rid of 1. I just felt like 3 highlights on her neck was too many. And so I decided 2 was just enough. And I went ahead and got rid of 1 of them. So just trying to darken her neck here. Her neck is in the shadows, you see. So her left shoulder is in the light. You see how that's one of the, but actually both of her shoulders. Her right shoulder has light hitting it, just partially, and her left shoulder is in the light. So it's important to get the shadow tones correct, to really, really be able to give that impression of someone that is partially in the shadows and partially in the light, which I love this. One of the best things I've ever done is a painting that shows shadow and light, and I'll show that for a moment right here. This is a painting that I had done and was very happy with the way that it turned out. Okay, so back to this. You can see I'm back at her cheekbone, and I've got the dark again. So still darkening that part of her face that's in the shadow even more. You see that? And as that part of her face is darkened, you see how her nose, it lets her nose really come out and be accentuated. And then putting more shadows on her neck area, the top of her shoulder, right there. I love how that orange is still bright, and that's okay. The orange is there. It's like holding its place for now. It's not bothering me because I know it's going to be blended eventually, but I don't want to blend it in too soon. I want to remember the importance of that orange in the painting, on her shoulder, on her face, and in the bow, until I change my mind about that. You can see even oranges in her hair as well. So, okay, now finally coming into this part of the painting where we have these folds, beautiful folds. I love painted folds, and I love the looseness of this. To be honest, I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to pull it off. And look, you see that? I got distracted away from it. Let me go work on something else, because very loose folds are kind of intimidating for me. And apparently I started working on them, and then I just said, oh, I can't do this. I can't do these loose folds. I have this impulse to make them perfect, and I have to give myself a moment to just kind of relax and, think about the looseness of it. Allow it to remain loose. Okay. Doing a little blending. I kind of darkened that right shoulder a little bit there. I was probably noticing that it was a little dark. But I am lightening things up. So, you see, I took that color that I just added to her right shoulder, and I'm adding it to other areas on the painting that needs it. And that is a very bright little spot on her left cheek. It's not going to end up being that bright, but that's okay because it's holding its place right now. It's saying, I'm going to be a bright spot here. I might not be this bright, but for now, I'm this bright. And so look how again, look at the darkening again and how that's really, really defining her face. Wow, just that. Okay, and then realizing, okay, I need some light in here. Wow, yeah. See, I'm enjoying narrating this because it helps me remember, the process. So here's some of the orange. I love that. Adding some of the orange into this shadowy area. Now, I did think about this. So, the painting I showed you a minute ago? One of the things about that painting that happened was I went in and added, I guess you could, I would say probably alizarin crimson, maybe cadmium orange, a tad of it. And I decided I might need to do that for this painting as well. So that's what I'm doing. I'm adding some of the, I'm refining the face. I'm keeping the light tones where they are. And yeah. Wow. So as you see that I'm working from dark to light, dark to light, dark to light, watching it kind of come alive as I do that. And trying to soften that cheek, but still letting that orange be there, holding its spot. So yeah, now this this spot on her face. Now this is speeded up 8 times. 8 times. So yeah. I didn't think I had worked on it for 8 hours. I don't think I did, but maybe I did. Maybe I did work on it that long. I know it took about a month to complete it. So I can really, really see it coming to life here. See her face coming to life, and then there's a dark spot under her mouth and that light spot, and those are still being refined here. They may still look a little exaggerated, as well as that that black part to the right of her right eye. Okay, yeah. Now, noticing, I do remember noticing her jaw is blending in with her neck. So I just kind of put that light there. Okay, we got the orange out again. The lovely orange. And I am going to end up using orange up there at the top of the painting. Just not in the form of a bow. And not as much of it. So you can see I'm trying to be loose with it. And then adding the orange to the background right there. Yeah, trying to work all of that out. It's almost as if she's got on a sheer top that is, it has folds, and it's going over her shoulder there. Okay, so here's another. This is another day where I came in. I think I had been looking at it for a while and trying to decide what needs to be done next. And then just wanting to refine that shadow area. And I think that what happened was I really did not record myself doing I didn't record myself doing all that fabric. So here is the final. And I kept the fabric very loose, but look at the close-up of her face. Look at her jewelry, so beautiful. I love the way her face came out. You see still the little bit of red in her hair. And I outlined, I love the way that her body came out. I outlined that right side of her body with the purple. And then you see how I took the orange and I made a ribbon around her right side. Her hair is long on both sides, and you see how I took out that black that was to the right of her eye. So, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it.